It's today's verse. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun. Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivardhakacharya Asatara Satya Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Gangamaya Jamuna Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Gurun Garanga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvase Susunyavadi Paskachate Shatarane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Panchakalpachubhishchaki Pasundabhya Patapatitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's July 8th, 2024 in Hillsborough, North Carolina, New Goloka. And we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 52, Rukmini's Message to Lord Krishna, Text 40. Purtaste data niyamana vrata. See, I spent so long preparing the content, I didn't practice the meter. Okay. Purtaste data niyama vrata deva vipra. Gurvarchanadi biralam bhagavan paresha. Aradito yadi gadagraja etyapanim. Grinatumena damagosha sutadayone. Please chant. Purtaste data niyama vrata deva vipra. Gurvarchanadi biralam bhagavan paresha. Aradito yadi gadagraja etyapanim. Grinatumena damagosha sutadayonye. Biralam bhagavan padesha. Aradito yadi gadagraja etyapanim. Grinatumena damagosha sutadayonye. Grinatumena damagosha sutadayone. Purtaste data niyama vrata deva vipra. Gurvarchanadi biralam bhagavan paresha. Aradito yadi gadagraja etyapanim. Grinatumena damagosha sutayanone. Okay, this is Purta, by pious works, such as feeding brahmanas, digging wells, etc. Ishta, sacrificial performances. Datta, charity. Niyama, ritual observances such as visiting holy places. Vrata, vows of penance. Deva, of the demigods. Vipra, brahmanas. Guru, and spiritual masters. Archana, by worship. Adibhi, and by other activities. Alam, sufficiently. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Para, supreme. Ishaha, controller. Araditaha, rendered devotional service. Yadi, if, Gada Agrajaha, Krishna, the elder brother of Gada. Etya, coming here. Panim, the hand. Grinatu, may please take. May, my, na, not. Namagosha Sutta. Shishupal, the son of Namagosha. Adayaha, and so on. Anye, others. BBT translation. Says Rukmini speaking. If I have sufficiently worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead by pious works, sacrifices, charity, rituals, and vows, and also by worshipping the demigods, brahmanas, and gurus, then may Gadadraja come and take my hand, and not Damagosha's son or anyone else. BBT purport. The Acharyas comment as follows on this verse. Rukmini felt that no one could obtain Lord Krishna by the efforts of a single lifetime. Therefore, she earnestly pointed out the pious activities she had performed in that life and previous lives, hoping to convince Sri Krishna to come. So we saw in the previous verses, she was talking about what she would do in the future, right? She was saying, I'll do austerities for many, many lives. Now she's talking about what she's already done in the past. Purtesta data niyama vratadeva vipra gur archana dibiralam bhagavan paresha aradito yadigadadra japanim grinatu mena damagosha sutadayo nye. Does anybody remember what Gadagraja means? Of Gada. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. Translation, if I have sufficiently worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead by pious works, sacrifices, charity, rituals, and vows, and also by worshipping the demigods, brahmanas, and gurus, then may Gadadraja come and take my hand, and not Damagosha's son or anyone else. So who is this Gada? So in Sanskrit, it's interesting, when you put two words together, like Gada and Agraja, Agraja literally means the older brother. So the two us become ah. And it's very difficult to tell because if it was also an ah, and you put them together, you get ah. And if it was an and an ah, you put them together and get ah. And so it's difficult to tell if you put together an and an or an or an and an or an ah. And there's two younger brothers of Krishna, one called, well, there's many, 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 but one called Gada and one called Gada. So which one is this? So if we look in the Bhagavatam 10:42-40, where the gopis say to Uddhava that Krishna is Gadagraja, there Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that is Gadagraja, who's the son of Vasudev and Devarkshita, who's mentioned also in 924, 52. But in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this commentary says this Gadadraja is Gada, not Gada. So this Gada is the son of Rohini, as mentioned in Bhagavatam 9:24-46. Now it's interesting that in Krishna book for 10:47-40, where the gopis say Gadadraja, Prabhupada doesn't, he just says Krishna. When in Krishna book for this particular verse, Prabhupada identifies this person as Balaram. So the person who is Krishna's older brother rather than the person of whom Krishna is the older brother. And I don't know how he puts in the Gada, maybe the carrier of the plow. He does a similar thing when Gada is mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3.2, 157, where Srila Rupa Goswami is talking, and this is what we're going to talk about today, the devotion of Krishna's children and younger siblings. And there, clearly Srila Rupa Goswami and the Acharyas identify as Gada, the son of Rohini, but Srila Prabhupada translates it as the club in Balaram's hand. So just that Prabhupada says, Acharyas can differ on certain points. So I thought we would look at something that we don't talk about very much. And that is the particular area of dasya, of servitude, from Krishna's younger siblings and children. So this is from the end of Nectar Devotion, end of chapter 39, Nectar Devotion, and all of chapter 40. It's kind of like the part 3 of servitorship. It's from the Western Ocean, wave 2, part 3. And this is so Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3, which means Western Ocean, wave number 2, verses 143 to 178. And Dristapu was telling me sometimes I throw way too much information at all of you. Well, I'm going to be guilty of that again today, but I'm going to be super guilty of that today. So you don't need to remember all the technical stuff, okay? If you do, that's cool, that's wonderful, that's ecstatic, but you don't need to. The main thing that you want to try to grasp is the way that rasa is understood. So rasa is taste, and taste comes from your basic connection with Krishna, what stimulates it, the voluntary expressions of that, the involuntary expressions of that, and the various emotions. Like Sadhvi's my friend. Okay, I have a taste, a friendship with Sadhvi. My basic connection is friendship, and there's a taste in there. A stimulant, I see her walking up the stairs from Mangalarti today with her beautiful shoes, and we're walking up the stairs in a funny way, and we're looking at the shoes. That stimulated it. Seeing her, seeing how she was walking. A voluntary expression was how I also walked and how I gave her a hug. I didn't have any involuntary expressions. That might mean like crying or hair standing on end. Emotions, I had happiness, I had comedy, and so forth. Is that clear? Yes? And here are the Sanskrit terms for them. Rasa, which everybody should at least know that. Staibhav is your basic connection. Vibhava is the stimulants. Anubhava is the voluntary expression. Sattvika-bhav, involuntary. Vyavichari, the emotions. And the way it works is the stimulants hit the dominant basic relationship, which mixes with emotions and any secondary relationships, and produces voluntary and involuntary expressions. Right? You have a relationship or friendship, it gets stimulated, it mixes with emotions, and then you do something. So again, this is the Sanskrit. And this is the basic framework we're putting it in. All right, so there's types of servitude. And there's two main types. Sambrahma Priti is what we normally think of as people in dasya, people in servitorship. But what we're going to look at today is Gaurava Priti, or someone who thinks Krishna is my father or Krishna is my elder brother. And this Gaurava Priti, you're feeling that Krishna is indulging me. He's taking care of me. And when you mix it together with all these elements, you get rasa. So this is more intimate than the other kind of servitorship. So the regular servants, they don't have this degree of intimacy with Krishna. But Krishna's younger brothers like Gada or Gada, they have this intimacy, although they're still in this mood of servitorship. They're seeing God as the Father. Is that quite the way that people in this world, when they pray to God as the Father, is that quite the same thing? Is that quite the same thing? Much more personal. You really think God is my father, or God is my big brother. And you just feel Krishna is always going to protect me. So those of us who had good fathers, not everybody has good fathers in this world, but those of us who had good fathers, I was very blessed actually the day that Prabhupada gave me the Gayatri mantras, my father became a life member. And we were all meeting with Srila Prabhupada, my husband, my oldest son, my father, and myself. And Prabhupada said, good father, good daughter. So when you have a good father, you feel protected by your father, right? Or a good older brother. I had 2 older brother-in-laws, and I felt that kind of protection. Okay, what's the stimulus? What stimulates this feeling? So there's 3 different categories of stimulus. Again, you don't have to remember all these. One is Vishaya, Krishna himself. What about Krishna? What about Krishna brings out this love in the sons and younger brothers and sisters? Well, Krishna's form, especially Krishna's form in Dwarka, when Krishna would give attention to things, important things, he'd really consider this important thing. How Krishna would smile at humor, that also invokes their affection. How Krishna would ask elders for advice, that also invokes, well, I really have a good older brother, I really have a good father. Which of Krishna's many qualities particularly stimulate this feeling? The supreme spiritual master, the supreme executive head, superior intelligence, supreme power, protector and maintainer. Well, I got a great dad. Yeah, I got a great older brother. That feeling. Krishna's a great father. He's so famous. He's so smart. He's so strong. He really takes care of me. He's really affectionate with me. So those are the feelings of the people with this mood of servitorship. Now the ashraya, which is a stimulant, are other people, other jivas who have a similar mood to yourself. Just like Lalita, you were talking yesterday about Swarup Damodar, who's often identified as Lalita, and you're talking about Lord Chaitanya's intimate associates. And when they're with each other, their love for Lord Chaitanya is stimulated by each other. Everybody follow that? If you've got a bunch of siblings and you're all loving your parents, that love of your fellow siblings for your parents stimulates that love. So contrasting with the regular people in servitorship, they're captivated by Krishna's opulences, whereas those in this particular type of servitorship, they're really captivated by the fact that Krishna is going to protect them. And we see that sometimes even when they act poorly and Krishna and Balaram like, okay, we're going to take care of you. Can you think of an instance like that where one of Krishna's sons acted improperly and Krishna's like, I'm just going to protect you anyway? Aniruddha, okay. That wasn't really his fault, but okay. Aniruddha, yeah. And Samba, yeah, Aniruddha and Samba. So just like in this world, if you do something, if a kid does something criminal, the parents often bail them out, right? That kind of mood. Okay, so there's 3 different types of devotees in this category. Anyone who feels subordinate to Krishna, someone who feels they're Krishna's sons or daughters, and younger brothers or sisters. So we have sons, younger brothers, and sisters under the Lord's care. And Srila Rupa Goswami gives this example of Gada. So Vasudeva had 16 wives, and each of them had many, many children, and these are detailed in the 24th chapter of the 9th canto. Not all of them are listed, but many of Vasudeva's wives are listed along with their children. And here Srila Rupa Goswami is giving these as examples, and of course Subhadra, who's one of Krishna's younger sisters. And then he gives examples of some of Krishna's sons. And these children of Krishna, they had more clothing, ornaments, qualities than the Parishads. Parishads are a subcategory of the regular servants, and some of the examples of them are Uddhava, Satyaki, Daruka, Bhishma, Parikshit, and Vidura. So those are people in the regular servant categories, but these children and younger siblings of Krishna, they have more opulence. And when Krishna is eating with his children or younger siblings, he sometimes feeds them. They sometimes open their mouth and he feeds them, just like would be done in a family. And they sometimes sit on Krishna's lap. Krishna smells their head, right? When someone's sitting, a little kid's sitting on your lap, you naturally smell their head, you pat them, right? And this is also interesting, this particular statement that other people think, what pious activities did they do in their previous life? Because this is what Rukmini is talking about in today's verse. How, I have proved my devotion to you in so many lifetimes. And then Srila Rupa Goswami, for each of the rasas, he focuses on one particular person who exemplifies that. And in this case, he focuses on Pradyumna, Rukmini's son, that he's the crown jewel, the killer of Sambara, and that he gets mistaken for Krishna. So what's his bhakti? He says, wow, when I see our guru, our Lord riding on Garuda, I just get so much confidence. But again, he's thinking, this is my dad. So the third category of stimulus is like general stimulants. So we have the stimulant of Krishna himself, the stimulant of other people who feel similar to us, and then general stimulants. And what really stimulates this servitor feeling from Krishna's younger siblings and children are Krishna's glance mixed with affection and smiling. Again, if you think if your older brother, if your father looks at you with affection and smiling, that brings out your love for that person. And here's an example given of Gada, who Rukmini is mentioning in today's verse, that when Gada saw Krishna affectionately looking at him, Gada got all confused with love and he offered his respects. This is again establishing that Gada is one of the children of Rohini. And again, Srila Prabhupada translates this differently. He says that this is when Krishna comes before Lord Balaram, and Balaram's club Gada offers obeisances at Krishna's feet. And it certainly is possible to take Balaram's club as being part of Krishna's family also. Okay, so what do? So when those in this mood of servitorship, when they're stimulated in this mood by Krishna, by the others in their family with similar moods, and by these qualities of Krishna, what do? How do they exhibit their devotion? They exhibit it in some kind of subordination. So like they'll sit on a lower seat than Krishna. They'll follow after Krishna. They'll follow Krishna's order. And they'll give up their own wishes. So sitting lower. So the demigods are coming to see Krishna, and Krishna's sons are following Krishna. And Lord Brahma is sprinkling his spiritual water on the sons. But the sons then, they sit lower. They're sitting on the floor covered by deerskins instead of sitting on thrones next to Krishna. We're subordinate to Krishna. And these are expressions that these servants have in common with the servants in general. So this is common to all servitorship. They offer respects, and they're in front of the Lord. They don't say anything. They're very humble. They'll do what the Lord wants, even if it means they have to die. They'll put their head down. They're very firm and determined. They won't laugh or cough in front of the Lord. They won't listen to the Lord's private joking conversations, and they'll crouch down. They won't talk about Krishna's conjugal pastimes. Okay? So just like, in a normal family, the children, they don't talk about their parents' intimate relationship. Not something they think about, not something they talk about. What are their involuntary expressions? And these are all the 8 involuntary expressions that can exist in any rasa. And one example with Pradyumna again. So having seen the lotus feet of Mukunda, your bodies become stunned, covered with perspiration, hair standing on end. So these are the involuntary expressions. Okay, what emotions do they have? So when they're serving Krishna in this way, what kind of emotions? So they have, again, this is in common. Anyone who's a servant, who's in the servant mood of Krishna, whether they're the regular servants or whether they're Krishna's sons or younger siblings, they all have the same variety of emotions. So one example is joy. So Krishna blows his Panchajanya conch, and the young Yadu princes there, they have horripilation, their hairs stand up in joy. A disappointment. Pradyumna was kidnapped right after his birth. And so by the time he actually saw his father, he was an adult. And so he expressed some disappointment that he didn't get to have his father raise him as a baby. All right, so what's the nature of this basic relationship? And that is, the Lord is my loving protector. I belong to him as his son or as his daughter or as his younger brother, as his younger sister, or in some way he's my intimate protector. Of course, it's interesting that feeling that the Lord is my protector is one of the 6 items of surrender. So even sadhakas, no matter what rasa they're going to be in, can think like that. Of course, those who are in parental mood, they usually, with some exceptions, think who's protecting whom? They think they're protecting Krishna. Of course, when Indra pours all the rain, they all go to Krishna and say, please protect us, which is interesting. Imagine going to your 7-year-old son when there's like a hurricane and stuff and going, please protect me. But generally, those in parental ras, they see that they're Krishna's protectors. So they don't have this kind of mood. And the coward boys are kind of interesting. I mean, they do see Krishna as their protector, but not always. Sometimes they think they're Krishna's protector. Generally, they feel that they're equal. And they'll say, it's not just you that held up Govardhan Hill. We also were helping. And who do you think you are anyway? You're not a big deal. Subal can beat you up. And so it's a very different mood. So the nature of this mood is thinking, this person is my father. Krishna is my father, or Krishna is my big brother. Now, those who are servants in general, their mood is, I want to use my body to do service. But those who have this particular kind of servitude, they think, Krishna really loves me as his little brother, or Krishna really loves me as his son. You think that Krishna is the protecting, caressing person, Gurudi, thinking I have a bodily relationship. Now, why do you think that Rukmini calls Krishna Gadagraja? Why does she use this term? She also uses the term Bhagavan, and Srila Sanatana Goswami says that this can be referring to two different people, like she's saying there's God and there's you, Krishna, and it can be also both referring to Krishna. Just like the residents of Vrindavan, they sometimes worship Narayan for Krishna's protection. They make this distinction in ecstasy. Yeah? Srila Prabhupada often points out that Krishna really likes being addressed in names that show his relationship to his devotees. He likes being called Yasodanandana, for example. He likes being addressed in this way. Now, interestingly enough, when the gopis call Krishna Gadagraja, which Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur associates with Gada, a different younger brother, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also comments that the reason the gopis are using this word to Uddhava is saying, oh, now Krishna has association with that family in Mathura. He's now related to Vasudeva and Vasudev's wives and Vasudev's children. He's not here in Vrindavan anymore. So there's this kind of subtle dig. They're talking about it in the context that Krishna is more attracted by the women in Mathura. But Krishna is very, very pleased when we call Krishna by names that are in relationship to his devotees. And we all feel that way, don't we? If we have some family member that we have affection for, and someone came up to me yesterday and said, oh, is this one of your great-grandsons? Are you Abhimanyu's great-grandmother? Oh, yes, I'm Abhimanyu's great-grandmother. And you feel something because you feel some love for that person. So the meaning of this love is adoration for the Lord as father or older brother, and wanting to be caressed and cared for by the Lord. In that mood, wanting the Lord to care for one in that mood. So this is more intimate than regular servitorship. So there is a reverential feeling. Prabhupada entitles that chapter 40 in the Nectar Devotion, as the reverential feeling of sons and other subordinates. So it does have this reverential feeling of servitorship, but it's an increase in love because it is more intimate. And Srila Rupa Goswami talks about 3 degrees of intimacy or intensity of this love. He does this with all of the rasas. So there's prema, sneha, and raga. So prema, when your love is fixed, you just think, this love will never decrease. I'll always have this love for Krishna. And anubhavas, again, are voluntary expressions, just complete attachment. So here's an example that the most sober Pradyumna could not open his mouth in order to speak to his father. He did not lift his tear-filled eyes and threw only furtive glances at Krishna's lotus feet. So this is, again, this great feeling that I'm Krishna's servant, I'm his subordinate. Another prema example is Arjuna says to Krishna, although Abhimanyu, though this is the son of Subhadra, Krishna's younger sister, although Abhimanyu was killed almost in your presence, Subhadra's love for you is not agitated at all, nor has it even slightly changed its original color. Prabhupada talks about ordinary worshipers of God in this world. You know, they'll go to the Lord and pray for something, and when they don't get it, they become atheists, right? It says, like in Germany, the women were praying, let my husband, let my son, let my brother, whatever, be saved in the war, and when they were killed, they became atheists. But here you have Krishna's younger sister who's in this mood of servitorship, and when her son Abhimanyu dies on the battlefield, while Krishna's on the battlefield, her love doesn't decrease. So this is the first level of intensity, prema. Then the next level is sneha, when this prema becomes very thick and the heart melts and you can't bear to be away from Krishna for a moment. And here Srila Rupa Goswami gives another example of Pradyumna. This is Krishna speaking to Pradyumna. Pradyumna, stop that excessive trembling and relieve your choking voice. Wipe the tears from your eyes and look at me. Give me your hand full of goosebumps. Oh, child, what is this veneration for your father? And then the most intense is raga. In the most intense form of prema or raga, with Krishna, sorrow becomes happiness. Without Krishna, happiness becomes sorrow. So, happiness minus Krishna is sorrow. Sorrow plus Krishna is happiness. And one will do anything to please Krishna, even giving up one's life. And so he gives an example. He says, if indicated by his father, Pradyumna will immediately drink poison as if it were nectar, and if his father does not permit it, he will reject nectar as if it were poison. So then for each of the rasas, Srila Rupa Goswami talks about separation and meeting, and I don't know if we're going to go through all this in depth. And these particular terms for separation and meeting apply to all the servitorship, all the friendship, and all the parental. So there's separation, longing for Krishna before you've ever met him once. A meeting, you meet him for the first time. Then there's a separation where you've met him, and you separate after you've met him. Then there's the meeting, you've met him, you separate, you meet him again. And then there's a meeting where you've never been separated from him. So these kinds of meeting and separation, which Srila Rupa Goswami describes, this pattern that we're looking at for this particular relationship, Srila Rupa Goswami repeats the same pattern for each of the rasas. That we just looked, the way he organizes it exactly, he uses the same template. So again, you have 2 different kinds of separation, 3 different kinds of meeting, and this applies to all the devotees in servitorship, friendship, and parental. For neutral rasa, it's different. There's just one category of separation, one of meeting, and conjugal, there are many different ones. So I don't think I think I'd rather take questions rather than going through my slides on meeting and separation. So, I'll do one of them because it's just so cute. I'll do 2. So this is satisfaction meeting after separation. So you've already met Krishna, you're separated, and you meet him again. When Krishna returned to Dwarka, all of his sons were so overjoyed that out of ecstasy they repeatedly made many mistakes. So that's that particular ecstasy. Okay, so we looked at this relationship, right? That what stimulates our love for Krishna, stimulates our basic relationship, mixes with our emotions, and produces voluntary and involuntary actions. Okay, we have some time for questions if anybody has any questions. Discussions, additions, subtractions, chastisements. Yes, Maharaj. They're, okay, so Maharaj is saying, for those of you on the internet, that Vyavichari or Sanchari Bhav is intermittent. Yeah, it's intermittent, and it's involuntary, and sometimes uncontrollable, yes. So emotions is a shorthanded way of explaining that, but thank you for adding more depth to that. So you have your basic emotion of your sthai bhav. So your sthai bhav is your basic connection that you have. Let's go back to the beginning where I have this in English also. Okay, so you have your stimulants is your called vibhava, and that's Krishna's devotees who are similar to you, and other stimulants. That mixes with your main relationship. It stimulates your main relationship. Then I'm putting it here as emotions, and that's for Vyavichari bhavs. But Vyavichari bhavs are they're moving, whereas sthai means to stay. So just like my example with Sadhvi. So what stays with Sadhvi, what's the dominant basic relationship is friendship. But as we were walking up the stairs, we were experiencing comedy, which is a secondary basic relationship. What else were we experiencing, Sadhvi? What other emotions did we have? Astonishment. Okay, so we had comedy, we had astonishment. So those, comedy would be a secondary sthai bhav, and astonishment would be a Vyavichari bhav. So you don't always feel astonishment in my company, I assume, right? But not always. Probably sometimes you feel disgust. So there's, I remember one time you were disgusted with me for 3 whole weeks. So these Vyavichari, I hope you don't mind my making you an example. Now you're going to get disgusted with me again. So these Vyavichari bhavs, yeah, they're sanchari, they're moving. They're moving, and yeah, they can become uncontrollable. And then they lead to anubhavas and sattvika bhavs. So when one's filled with these, your basic relationship as stimulated, and then you have these moving emotions, they demand expression. And they're expressed voluntarily as anubhavas and involuntarily as sattvika bhavas. So voluntarily, like Pradyumna's looking down at Krishna's feet, and he's not saying anything. That's voluntary. And involuntary, his hairs are standing on end. So the emotions are exhibited. So that a detailed explanation of the Vyavichari bhavs. This was a piece from Western Ocean Wave 2. The detailed expression of the Vyavichari bhavs are in the Southern Ocean, where there's an entire wave just to explain the Vyavichari bhavs. And there's, I think, 33, yeah? 33 Vyavichari bhavs. Anything else? According to my watch, we have 2 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed this going into depth with Rukmini calling Krishna Gadagraja, the older brother of Gada. I thought it'd be nice to explore a personality we don't generally talk about, and to explore a particular aspect of rasa that we don't usually go into in depth. You know, I was looking at the list of what Rukmini said she'd done in her previous life, and I thought, okay, well, we could look at everything in that list. Or we could look at Rukmini talking about her adhikar. You know, he's marrying me because I've proved my devotion to you in my previous lives, and I'm going to continue doing that in my future lives. But also she's showing her adhikar by addressing him with this affection, as you who are the older brother of Gada. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindanalaya Taksham Marhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Bhagom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham
Govindam Adipurusham Namahom Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Pishtaya Putale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vacha Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Matsyajanti Satanande Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati Gaur Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati Gaur Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Goloka Nana Radha Goloka Nana Radhe. Jaya Radha Goloka Nana Radha Goloka Nana Radhe. Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe. Jai Om Vishnu. All glorious.
Marjanam Bhavamahadagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kaira Vyachandrika Vitaranam Vijadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etadrishita Bhakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishame Hajjanina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Danam Najanam Nasundarim Avitam Vadi Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Harinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Badav Kribayata Vabada Pankaja Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlishyavapadam Ratam Anastumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yatatatava Vidadatulam Mat Prananatastu Saeva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benedictions to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate I have no attraction for it. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and make me the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly? Chant your holy name. When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, in your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Shastastika Ki Jai.